everybody, I'm Tom Vasel, and today we're taking a look at 7 different games here, some short reviews of these games, and we got kind of a mix of different things here. Different sizes, different themes, all sorts of things. A couple that aren't particularly exciting, but some I enjoy, so let's take a look. Here we go. Codis Naturalis is a small little game from Pandasaurus, and in fact, this is an oddity because I'm going to come out straight out and say I like this game, but it's an oddity in the fact that this name, Codis Naturalis, is a forgettable name for whatever reason, and the game, I mean, it has just been sitting. I played this quite a bit ago, and it kept missing it because I was like, what is that game? I'll get around to reviewing it. Well, now I'm reviewing it. This is a little card-laying game that has a little bit of tile-laying aspects to it, but point scoring. Here, let me show you. In this game, each player gets a starter card, and you can decide which side of the starter card you would like to use. So let's say I start with this side here. Now, on your turn, you're going to play a card from your hand. There are 2 types of cards here, resource cards and gold cards, and you can play a card any direction, either side you want. So I could play this card like this if I want to, or I could play it on this side. Now, when you play a card, it must cover up a corner. So you can see playing the card on this side means I now lose a corner here to cover up in the future. If I play it on this side, I have more. However, there's no resources. Well, there's one resource that's there. That's just a regular resource. The reason you have these resources is because if I want to play this card, which will score me 5 points, I need to have 5 of these bell resources. I'm not even close to that. So I might not play that, but if I play this card here, now I have 3, so I'm getting closer. Maybe later on, I put this card here, because once you play a card, you draw a card, and I'm hoping eventually to get another resource. A 5th bell will allow me. Of course, here I cover up a bell. This one needs 2 butterflies and a leaf. I don't even have that. But here's the thing. You will, as time goes by, start getting these. You'll start covering things up. And as you score points, you move them up here. If someone gets to 20 points, that triggers the end of the game, or if these stacks of cards run out. So you play a card, then draw one from either stack or from one of the face-up cards. There's also objective cards. You'll have your own secret objective. This, for example, gives me 2 points for every one of these symbols, these scrolls I have at the end of the game. And there's some public objectives. This one says I need to have 3 green cards that go in this direction. For every group I have like that, I get 2 points. And that gives me 2 points for every 3 red resource. And whoever has the most points is the winner. That's easy. So this game has some really neat ideas to it. Really neat that you're drawing these cards. You can place them on either side. Now, you're usually placing it on their face-up side, but sometimes you place it on the face-down just so you have more spots. You can find yourself, some cards give more points, but only have 2 corners to build off of, which kind of closes you down. You're trying to match patterns and things like that. There's 2 problems with the game. One is there's some luck involved. Sometimes I'm building groups of 3 greens, right? 3 diagonal greens, and there's no greens face up. I love to play a green. When can I get one? So I just got to kind of wait and hope till they come to build them. That's not a big deal. The other deal, this is a small, short game. On it, the box here, it says that it is 25 minutes. And that's probably true. But because there's so much thought, you're thinking, I'll play this card, which will then give me the resources to play this card next turn. But if I play it over here, then I can play this card instead. There's more analysis paralysis in this than you might think. This is a very thinky, quiet game for being so small. Now, again, I like it. I like the way it looks. I like the little bit of gold foiling they put in it. I like the idea of trying to match patterns, but also you're producing resources. So it's a pattern matching game, but that almost feels secondary to just getting the resources out to play big point cards. It's a bit of a race trying to beat other people, and it's small and easy to play. So this one gets a 7 out of 10 for me, Codis Naturalis. Cosmic Cow Collectors. This is a silly game here from Draco Gaming in which you are going to be pushing your luck to catch cows, aliens catching cows. But you're not pushing your luck, you're pushing your opponent's idea. It's hard to explain. Let me just show you how it works. At the beginning of the game, you're going to get 4 planet cards in your hand, and you're going to put one in front of you as your secret planet. You start with 10 cows. On a player's turn, they're going to pick one of these 3 actions. You have to pick a different one than you picked earlier. This one here, you just get more cows. You know what your number is on your planet. This one's 15, and you will say any number up to that number. So I might say 13 cows, and I just got 13 cows. Yay. You can also draw another card if you want to in your hand, and after you draw that card, you can replace your secret planet if you want to. Finally, you can invade other people's secret planets. If you think you know someone's secret planet's number, you go, I think there's a 15. If you're correct, boom, you've conquered that planet. They have to put out a new secret planet, and they also lose 5 cows. Now, at the bottom of each of these planets, it shows you how many there are. So this one, for example, there are 3 9s in the deck, and there are 5 11s. There are 2 15s, so that's a pretty juicy number for me to have. The game will end when this deck runs out or when someone gets to a certain number of cows. You will then score 4 points for each conquered planet that you have taken over the course of the game. You will also score points for having a straight of cards in your hand, or if you have a bunch of small planets in your hand. You'll add those, I say points, they're cows, and whoever has the most cows is the winner. Cosmic Cow Collectors sounds cooler in theory than it plays in practice. The idea of saying, I like the idea of you drawing a 15 cow card and you saying, I have 9. Now, everyone who's trying to take over your thing will say, well, they have at least a 9. So 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Are they trying to outguess me or not? But what does it really matter at the end? Because someone guessing me will go, you have 12. I say, no. So they're like, okay, you have 13. Because you can guess on someone twice. And because you can guess on someone twice, and because the range is so small, there's just so much luck involved in this game that the bluffing gets buried in that luck. And the pieces are great, the art is great, the theme is great, but I think the game is a little too confusing for people who don't play a lot of games. So this isn't like a, hey, you never played games before? Try this one out. It's a little too complex for that, but too lucky for people who care. And that combination just doesn't work. Every game of this, when it's over, I'm like, I guess you won. Good job. And it didn't feel like they really did anything better than everybody else. So it's a nice try. I think there's a germ of a good idea here, but this one's a 5 out of 10 for me. Cosmic Cow Collectors. Quartz, the dice game, is based on Quartz. Quartz is a game designed by Sergio Halaban, and it is a game kind of push your luck game. In fact, the game was popular enough that they made multiple versions of it, including one based on, I think, Friday the 13th. And so this is, or Jason, or one of those horror movie things. Now they made a dice game version of it, a fast Yahtzee style, sort of not push your luck, but collecting gems game. You have a bag of gems here in this game, and then you have some of this obsidian stuff, which is trash. In fact, it's worth -3 points at the end of the game, and you have it stacked over here because at the end of every round, you'll throw 2 of these into the bag to add more to your valuable gems. First thing you do in your turn, pull one from the bag. Ooh, I got a nice pink one. Then you're going to roll these dice. Now, if you ever get an obsidian, you get a re-roll token, so you can spend these to re-roll dice. But like every one of these games, you're going to roll the dice, and you can roll them up to 3 times, and you can re-roll any number of dice you want. And once you're finished rolling, you're going to take actions based on the dice that you have rolled. Now, if you roll the pickaxe, for each pickaxe, you mine a crystal from the bag. So if I got 2 pickaxes, I do 2. With jackhammers, you mine them from the bag, and you need at least 2. So 2, you will draw that many crystals from the bag, and then you get to put half of them back, which means if you draw some obsidian, you can get rid of that. Speaking of obsidian, you can give it to other players with this die. You need at least 2 of them. And if you have 2, you give 1 to somebody else. If you have 3, you give 2 to somebody else, etc. If you have the hand token, you can steal gems from other people's carts. And treasure chests, you get to put gems into your carts. Again, treasure chests and stealing, you need at least 2 to do one action, 3 does another action, etc. And then finally, there's a helmet on one of the sides of the die, and these are wild and can be used for any action. After everybody has gone, whoever has the highest gem in their cart goes first. The next round, you throw these in. At the end of the game, you're going to look at your gems, whether they're in your chest where no one can steal them or in your cart, and you're going to get points. These are worth only 2, but groups of them will give you bonus points at the end. 3, 4, 5, 7, 9. -3 for each black, and -5, whoever has the fewest gems in their treasure chest, most points, is the winner. Quartz, the dice game, has some pretty basic rules that everyone's going to understand. They'll understand the dice game. By the way, the components are really nice in this game, so that works well. But rolling, keeping dice, like Yahtzee. People understand that. I do think the needing 1 of one side of the die, but the rest of the dice you need 2 of, and that 2 gives you 1 and 3 gives you 2, is just a little... I know it sounds weird when I say this, like that's going to confuse people, and you're like, how is that confusing? It just is. It's just that needing that 1 more is just a little bit confusing. Other than that, you're collecting gems. You're hoping to pull the gems that are worth a little, because if you get the ones that are worth a little and get collections of them, you get more points, or the ones that are worth a ton. But the game really doesn't offer you a lot of choices. It has choices in the sense of you roll the dice. Oh, I'm going to steal. I will steal, the most expensive gem. Or maybe from Bob, who is winning, depending. I'm going to protect one of my gems. I guess I'll protect the most expensive one. There didn't seem to be any real thoughtful choices here, and then that is compounded by the fact that this game is too long. It says 15 to 30 minutes on here, 3 to 6 players. If you play with 6 players, you're not getting anywhere close to a 15-minute game, and it's just going to drag and drag and drag. It's the kind of game where you're watching someone else roll and just hoping they don't steal from you. That's it. And I just felt like Quartz, the dice game, falls in that category that you cannot fall into when you are a board or dice game, and that is, it's boring. So for that, I give it a 5 out of 10. I want to like it more than I do, but I'm going to pass on this one. Temple Code is sort of a mastermind for multiple players. Johan Levet is the designer of this game, and they are one of the designers of other logic games. The Turing Machine is probably their most well-known one. This one is based, think of this as, like I said, as a cooperative version of Mastermind. Let me show you. In this game, each player is going to have a card in front of them. Now, this is going to show a combination of colors and symbols. All symbols are the same color, so all 8s are red, for example. It's just to help you differentiate them. So you have some sort of combination. Everyone else at the table can see it, but you can't. You have a little pad here to keep track of information. And then you're going to have 2 random cards face up in front of you. Now, on a player's turn, what they will do is you'll pick one of the cards in front of someone else. So someone else on their turn might pick this card in front of me. That means I get to check this card. And so I'm going to check this card against my own. And to do that, I'll put this right here. And this says that I have 1 red triangle. That means I have the right symbol, but it's in the wrong spot. Now, if you remember when you saw mine, for example, I had the red 8. So I know that one of these is the right symbol, but in the wrong spot. If it's something else, let's find one with some matching information here. I mean, this one here, if I match this one up, you'll see there's 1 blue and 1 red. It says I have 1 symbol that's right but in the wrong spot. That's the white one, and 1 that's right and in the right spot. As soon as you think you know what yours are, you tell everyone, you reveal it. If you're correct, you take half of a medallion, you draw a new card and keep playing. If you get the full medallion, you win the game. Now, Johan has always a clever idea in his games. And in this particular game, the clever idea is put card next to card and it tells you what the thing is. That's cool. Here's the issue with that if you care. And you might not care. There are 7 different colors. So if you're looking for the combinations on your front that you'll have, it'll be 7 times 6 times 5, which those permutations is going to be a lot more than the number of cards in the game. In fact, the number of cards in the game is, it doesn't even tell me here how many there are. 35. There's 35 combinations. Well, that's a lot more. So you could possibly memorize the different possible combinations. Why is there only 35 and not every combination? Because otherwise this card system wouldn't work. I assume all the colors are distributed evenly, and it's not that big of a deal, but I just thought I would point that out. Here's the thing. Temple Code is a simple deduction game. I like it. It's actually very interesting because it offers 2 things. It offers basic deduction. Mastermind deduction. You have the right colors in the wrong spots, the right colors in the right spots. Simple. But what I really think is interesting about the game is you are picking a card in front of somebody else. Everyone has 2 cards in front of them. But when you pick them, you are also giving them information. So I'm not going to keep picking Molly if she's going to keep getting all that extra information in front of her. And in fact, if I do pick a card in front of her, I will probably not pick the one where leaving the other one helps her out a ton. So that's kind of an interesting thing. And also, if someone picks a card in front of you, it gives you more information. So you are playing a lot of the time. The game is 1 to 4 players. If you're playing 4 players, you're playing half the time, doing the deduction stuff. 3 players, you're playing 2/3 of the time. And I think that works really well. So just keeping in mind that it's a much lighter game than other games that are out there, and it's pretty short because you can figure one out. Then you go again. If you're wrong, you chuck your card, get a new card. But I like it. Almost as a my first deduction style game, Temple Code gets a 7 out of 10 from me. Blast Track. Blast Track is a game about building roller coasters. It's from Foxmind. This is a reprint of an earlier game they did that was about water flumes. And I think they changed the theme because they wanted to add loops to this game. Unfortunately, the front of this box, this is a pretty terrible cover. This cover looks like a game that you would buy at an educational store. And in fact, I wouldn't be surprised if that's what they're trying to get it sold at. This cover just screams, don't buy me. I'm a boring educational game. And even the back of the box doesn't look that interesting. But that being said, I like the original game, so I wanted to give this one a whirl. Here's how it plays. In this game, you're going to have little roller coaster guys. They're going to be zooming around. And what's going to happen is you're going to be building track. And as you build the track, your guys are going to be moving on the board. And it's even possible as you build this track, that you'll help other people move on theirs. So what you're going to do on your turn is you're going to take one of these 3 tiles that is face up and add it to make your track longer. So let's say I was purple. I might put my track like this one here and then move on to the next piece. Now you're trying to score points over here. You also want to have the longest track. Whoever has the longest track at the end of the game will get 3 points. There are different ways to score points. If you place a tile in such a way that it also makes someone else move, then you move up 1 on this track. You move up 1 on this track. This is if you connect multiple pieces at the same time, you'll move up on your connections track. These 3 tracks, you move up if you build tunnels, loops, and go faster, which I'll talk about in a second. But what's important is if you build too many tunnels or go into too many tunnels, or any of these top 4 tracks, then you start going the other way. You've gone too much. The nausea rating is too high. People are overwhelmed by your ride. Because you're going to add all these numbers together at the end plus these 3 to see who wins. Now, on the track itself, when you place a tunnel piece, you place a tunnel any way you want. Let's say yellow is coming in here. Yellow goes in a yellow tunnel 1, and that's the rainbow one. So I'd find the one here that has you have a tile over here. I place that somewhere else, and I come out that track. You're never allowed to crash into somebody else. Other things that you have, if for some reason you play a loop tile, you'll draw the top tile from the loops and put that in, and you can see all kinds of crazy things can happen when you do loops. And then finally, these speed tiles zoom you up, and when you move onto one of those, you're going to get to place an extra tile into the tunnel. And so after a while, you might, if you're lucky, you might zoom really far on your track. The game will continue till the track pieces run out. At that point, you'll check the scores like I said. Whoever has the most points is the winner. Building roller coasters is a thing that a lot of people like, hence the popularity of Roller Coaster Tycoon and other roller coaster theme park building games. There's a lot of them out there. I like it. And there's also people like building connections, tile laying games with connections on boards, and this is going to be one of those. If you like Suro, this is going to have something to that. What I like about this is the idea that you want to add in loops and tunnels and speed sections in your roller coaster, but adding too many of them starts actually detracting, and that's kind of fun. Now, it can snowball. Sometimes you're making this, you're like, I have a loop. That's my 5th loop. Done. And then someone else happens to connect their roller coaster and makes you go through 4 more loops. It's just the way it works out. But the game is short enough, I don't think it matters. The game has the opportunity of helping other people. Realize that helping other people is a much smaller thing in a 2 or 3 player game because you were probably not going to cross paths as much. While in a 6-player game, you're going to be moving your track probably a lot. And in fact, you can do that just by swinging your track around into the midst of where everybody else is. So it's a fun game. It has a cool visual when it's done, seeing the roller coasters go all in different directions. And I like it, and I think it's good for kids too. So Blast Track, a 7 out of 10. Diatoms, a game of microscopic proportions, is based on a game where people make mosaics out of microscopic algae, which is an actual thing that I did not know about. So this game has taught me something new today. Now, this is all an excuse for making an abstract strategy style game where you're going to be collecting different shapes of colors, placing them in front of you and scoring points. Let's take a look. So in this game, there's going to be these water tiles. One starts here in the middle of the board, and players are going to have their own playing board here, but we'll come back to that in a second. On your turn, you will be placing these tiles. You'll place a tile from your hand down so that it matches on the different sides, and the tiles can be rotated. And you're going to be forming points here. When you form a point, a sample, you're going to put this token on to see what colors you have found. So in this case, I found a size 2 blue and a size 2 red. And so when that happens, you're going to take a look at these Petri dishes here. And these Petri dishes have 5 different shapes of different colors. So if you have a 1, essentially the circle has a single side. This has 2 sides, the oval. The triangle has 3, the square has 4, and the star has 5. And whichever shapes that you make, you're going to put here. And let's say I got a 5-sided blue star for whatever reason. I can put it here because stars can go there. I can't put a star there. And you can see which shapes are going to go into the various areas. If you make a 6 when you place things out, then you have to split that. So I might say, the 6 is a 4 and a 2. So I put out a square, and then I put out an oval. And players are going to keep doing this until all the water tiles are placed. I did want to point out there, this is a very nice way of showing how the diatom tiles are placed out. But it also, you have these little booklets here, these little field notes that show you how scoring is done at the end of the game. And the score sheets that you have will walk you through all the different kinds of scoring. You're going to just try to match colors. You're going to count how many you have of each color. The more you have of a color, the more points you're going to get. Then you will have symmetric pairs on lines. Do you have the exact same thing across from each other? Then you're going to get matches depending on where it is in the circle rings. Then you're going to get different shapes. Each ring, you want as many different shapes as possible. And you check them off here, and you want to try to get all 5 shapes, which is 40 points. And then this is a little bit of explanation, but you can also play with some guest judges, which give you another way to score points. Each guest judge here, you get extra points for ones in the outer ring. Comes in an easy mode or a persnickety mood judge where you will lose points if you do not meet this. It's not really that much harder. It just means there's a way to possibly lose some points. Most points, winner. Before we go any farther, I would like to talk about components. The components for this game are unbelievable. There's one minor issue I had, and that is I think the purple and the red in certain lights, a lot of lights I played in, were very hard to distinguish from each other. Now, they have different symbols on them, so it's not a big deal, but the game, you can buy like these wooden piece upgrades, and I thought the wooden piece upgrades were vastly superior. I do like everything else there. I like the fact that your board shows you what shapes fit in there, but the score sheets are amazing. I don't ever have to explain to people all the different scoring methods because they're listed on your score sheet right in front of you, and it walks you through them one at a time. This is kind of the Feld game of sorts of abstract strategy games because it is just you get points for doing everything, and you can't do everything. I want as many different colors, different shapes in a circle, but I want these 2 exact ones opposite each other. But I also want to do this and that, and then there's also the rule of the rules that you're trying to follow, and you can play with more than one rule. You can play with harder rules, and so that's interesting. What keeps me from thinking this game is amazing, and I do like it, I'm giving this game a 7 out of 10. What keeps me from thinking this game is amazing is that I think putting out the tiles in the middle of the table is the weakest part of the game. You're kind of just looking for colors that you can do.
And I never felt like I was making too many particularly clever game, things there. Because you're restricted by matching colors and sides to each other, there's not too often too many places that you can put out tiles to get a lot of things. And so that gets kind of less exciting as the game progresses. I think you can run out of shapes too, and that there's like a ton of stars, but you're not going to be making that many of the 5 shapes. So I thought it was odd that there's the same number of stars as there is, say, circles or ovals. I think you'll find more ovals probably than anything else. But it is interesting. It's fun. I don't know particularly, like I said, how much strategy is in the game, but there is a lot of thought. And when you collect objects, where you put them on your board is, I think, the actual game, not the tile placement part. And that part is the part I enjoy the most. So that's Diatoms. Like I said, now you can do that microscopic algae decorating. Point of View is a new game from Haba, and it's a series of games. I'm talking about Point of View Lost Places here. This is a game in which you're going to have a big shield, which is going to be your point of view, and then working together.
All right, I don't want to spoil too much of this. I am already don't worry about it. It's not going to spoil the game, but each person is going to have a big folder piece, which is going to show their point of view of the island. So this is the south facing north. Here's the north facing south. They're opposite, but they show very different things. I'm not showing you the other two. Don't look at that very long. And then you're going to open a box of cards, and there's 4 of these boxes, and they'll give you some story, but occasionally they'll ask you a question like, what time is it? And working together, you have to figure out what time it is. And so you just go through these, and each of these questions will give you a certain amount of stars for points. And you might run across some weird cards that do other things. And that's pretty much all I can say without spoiling it. You're just going to go through and try to answer as many questions as you can.
Yeah, so this is the game in which I can't really talk too much about without spoiling, although it's not particularly spoilery. But you're on an island in this game, and how did you get to this island? The game does a pretty decent job at walking you through a story. In fact, sometimes you will go and talk to someone, and maybe you'll go in a building, and then there will be a card that shows the inside of that building, which will be given to one of the players from their direction. Sometimes cards are given to specific players. And then answering the questions. Like a question might say, how many birds do you see in the sky? Well, I can see 3 birds, and Julie can see 2. Well, then that makes there's 5. Do we see the same board? So the game is all about communicating with each other. You want a game that forces people to communicate. This works really well. And I like this. I think it works good for kids. It works well for adults. And it's going to be interesting. They recommend there's 4 chapters. And they recommend after each view to rotate the board so that you're not looking at the same thing the whole time. And you'd be surprised at how much you will miss on your own board. This game gets a 7 out of 10 from me. It would get a higher score, but unfortunately the actual art on the board isn't that great. I really think they missed one here. They could have made these just gorgeous looking things. It almost looks computer generated or faded out. The front of the cover looks great, but the boards themselves, I think sometimes we would struggle from issues like, I think I know what that is, but it's a little smudgy. I just wish it was just much more clear. Maybe that's done on purpose to the theme. They almost have kind of a Lost TV show type aspect theme on this. But still, I like the whole idea. You can go through it. When you're done, you're probably not going to want to play the game again after you go through it 4 times. But each of those times will take 45 minutes to an hour, probably. And that's you're going to get a lot of thing out of it. And you just give it to someone else to let them play. So I'm certainly interested to see the other point of view games. This one's enjoyable. Like I said, my only problem is I wish the art was better. But it does do something different, that's for sure. That's Point of View Lost Places. And there you go, folks. 7 different games. And incidentally, with 7 games, I gave out 5 7s and 2 5s. Wow, some good games out there. We often get caught up in the big, giant games that everyone's talking about, but sometimes it's one of these smaller games you haven't heard of that will be the one to grab you. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Tom Vasel, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching another video from the Dice Tower. Hey, you want to learn more about us, communicate with us? We have a Facebook group, we have a Discord channel, lots of different ways to get involved with the Dice Tower. You can find that in our Linktree link below. So just click that, it will take you and you can communicate with us on Facebook, join our Facebook groups. There's lots of cool things that you can find and become part of the Dice Tower. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Tom Vasel.